Hi, this is Pixalf Studio. Today we're going to break down the Nyonai logo animation. Let's take a look. The company specializes in the digital space and we needed to show working with a lot of data. The structure of the animation is divided into two parts. It's a flythrough triangles, which represent a large amount of data, and the appearance of the logo itself in the same style. We also made a futuristic appearance of the text. Let's start, perhaps, the analysis of the flythrough scene. The flyover itself is realized in 3D. We have a camera, a control layer and a lot of triangles. In order to make such animation, we used triangles from the logo itself. Broke them up in Adobe Illustrator program and used them here. The structure of this flythrough looks like this. We have 4 of these blocks with triangles. We created them based on the first one, duplicated them and changed some in position. Let's take a look at a few of them. These layers have these keys present on them. This is the opacity and the echo effect. This is the kind of effect that allows you to create copies of objects that will follow the original. We start the animation with 0 copies and after a few frames we put a higher value. We also changed the echo time parameter to make the copies closer to each other. And we also changed the decay parameter. The very flight of these objects is realized with the help of the camera. If we look, we don't have any keys on the camera. We can create a null object, translate it into a 3D layer, bind a camera to it, and this layer will be the controlling one. Here we have changed the position parameter, starting from -36,000 and up to 0. This way of binding the camera to the null object allows you to control the camera more flexibly, without adjusting these two parameters separately. In essence, it is a kind of rig. After we have arranged the triangles in space, we made a pre-render, so that the animation was in real time and there was no loading. After we made the pre-render, we added more triangles using the particular plugin from Red Giant. They look like the following. They appear like the previous triangles, but have a different animation. Here we changed the following parameters. Emitter type we set to box. Particles per second we changed and animated to make them disappear smoothly from the screen. We also changed the position and emitter size parameters at different coordinates based on the scale of the scene. The particle parameters have been changed as follows. We added live random, and the particle type is sprite. For the sprite itself we have a created composition. We have a resolution of 255 by 255, and we have a different triangle for each frame. In the sprite control settings in the time sampling item we have a random still frame. Each individual frame from this composition will be used as a static image. We've also changed some of the particle physics parameters here, but it's not necessary. We have changed the opacity over life parameter to make each particle disappear. This graph can be found in ready-made presets. We used this one. In addition, we also changed the rotation parameter. Random rotation. This allows the particles to rotate a little on their axis. Without this parameter the particles will look like this. The final step in customizing the particulator was to change the turbulence field. We added an XYZ display. This is essentially all the objects that are used in the original scene. To animate the logo itself, we also use 3D layers that appear at different positions on the Z-axis and fly to their final location. Each such triangle is animated as follows. We have a position animation with a slightly modified graph editor. And there is an animation of the appearance through opacity. Here we have set these values. And all the layers do not appear at the same time, but begin their appearance from the center and end on the marginal layers. This indentation allows us to make the animation non-uniform and non-linear, so it looks more interesting. The final highlight of the animation of this logo was this triangle, which appears, flies out and lands in its final place, breaking into 4 parts and creating new triangles. And this triangle doesn't just appear out of nowhere. And after we animate the last letter I, we made the same color of this triangle to connect these two objects. This layer's graph editor looks like this. As you can see, we have an unusual key here. It looks like a dot. If we move this key, it will move with it and adapt to the speed. We can enable this key with the rove across time parameter. This key becomes dependent on others, and this is sometimes very convenient. For example, as in this case, the appearance of the rest of the triangles is animated using positioning and rotation. Here we used elastic expression. If you don't like plugins and scripts, you can find the expression on the internet. You can find a huge number of different variations, but the principle is the same: create inert movements. As we can see, additional triangles appear after the impact. We made them using the particular plugin as well. We used the same parameters as in the previous variant. Emitter type, here we have point, and emitter behavior is set to explode. This means that the particles will appear once and disappear. The final stage of the animation was the text animation. And here it looks unusual. We made it with the help of Cinema 4D program. We rendered this text on the alpha and recolored each letter in After Effects. We could leave out the 3D software and do it in After Effects, but it's a slightly different result. I can show you in a new composition. Let's import the letter with the Illustrator file. Let's scale it up. Let's turn on this option here. It allows us to preserve the quality of the vector at scale. Then we can convert it to shapes, using this option. Then we can split it into separate parts. Remove the extra points. And do that with each part of the letter. Here we can either use position animation, like this, and crop the middle layer with a mask, and animate that mask. And if we look, we have a similar result. Or we can use the slot parameter animation. Let's do the same thing, expand the parameters and animate the groove. Here we need to change some keys so that the partition of this letter N does not shrink. With each letter like this, we need to come up with different animation options to make it look interesting and correct. It goes something like this. Let's adjust the graph editor. And we get an animation like this. Then we can use either a shape gradient or a gradient ramp effect. Here we can pull off an animation like this with each of these letters. To emphasize the shapes of this text, we added these shapes. They are very minimalistic and almost invisible, but they add a bit of detail. The very concept of the animation allows you to see that this is a modern and technological style. We have futuristic triangle shapes used, and there's a twist like this in the form of a triangle that breaks apart. All this allows us to make the logo animation solid and interesting, unique and attention-grabbing. This is what we should strive for with every project we do. As a final touch, we added all the sound effects. Let's take a look at this animation again. Thanks for watching.